Okay, we're here with Hillary Turner. She is a congressional candidate in West Virginia's 3rd District. Hillary, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So, we've gotten to talk to a lot of congressional candidates today, and I just really am thankful we get to talk to you because I think West Virginia is kind of a sneaky state that can end up going blue, and we have a lot of great progressives running. And I think before we get into the whole strategy and what we're fighting for in this movement, I think people want to get to know you, the candidate, a little bit more. I think a lot of people feel it's a little intimidating to run for office. What was your journey that brought you to wanting to run in this year?
Well, I've been politically involved for a really long time. Since I was in high school, I was in the Young Feminist Alliance, and in college, I was the president of the Progressive Student Alliance at my college, and I really got into environmental issues and the issue of sustainability and how to grow food organically and sustainably. And that kind of led me all over the world, studying permaculture and learning and volunteering in different places. And I've also worked as a teacher. And my family has a long farming history here in West Virginia. We have a farm in Greenbrier County that has been in our family for 6 generations. So I would like to make sure that we are, protecting our water and our environment here in West Virginia so that the future generations, like my daughter and her kids, can enjoy that and hopefully live off the land in a healthy way.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very understandable goal. I'd love to ask you what drew you to specifically this office that you're running for, the 3rd District of West Virginia, because I think there's a lot to be asked of what does the federal government need to be doing to help West Virginia? What are some of those issues that the people in your district are, really clamoring for the federal government to help them out with? And what are you hoping to be able to do for those people?
Sure. Yeah. Back to the question of just why I decided to run, like as a mother, fighting climate change is definitely one of my top priorities, just as an existential, you think about your kids' safety and well-being into the future. So that's a big priority for me. But and West Virginia has experienced some of the effects of climate change already.
Yeah.
But as far as some of our biggest issues in our district, one of those would be access to clean water. So that is also an environmental issue, but it's just dealing with direct water pollution. A lot of it's from abandoned coal mines or current coal operations or fracking. There's also pipelines that are being proposed to be built in different areas through West Virginia that people are fighting against. The other big issues in West Virginia, the biggest one really is poverty. We have 20% of our population here in West Virginia lives in abject poverty, which is twice below the poverty line. So there's also a lack of development. You can drive through certain places in my district that really look like a third world country as far as the conditions of the roads, and people don't have access to clean water, sanitation, internet, or even cell phone service in a lot of the places with mountains. So there's a lot of challenges that the people in my district are facing. And, our teachers here in West Virginia are some of the worst paid in the country. So the list really goes on. So when I tell people my platform is just really long, like these are all of the things that we need to
do. So let's go a little bit into some of those policy areas. You've clearly listed some of the issues that we have to address, whether it be climate change and environmental sustainability, or it be, abject poverty or some just basic services that the community needs. I'd love to ask you, let's first start with the climate change and environmental sustainability. What does your plan look like? Because I think climate change, there feels like there's so much that needs to be done. But what are you hoping that West Virginia specifically and your district, the third district, can do to be a part of that, green revolution?
Sure. Well, I support addressing climate change from any and all angles, and I'm open to hearing people's suggestions as far as different acts and proposals, just because I feel like this is the greatest challenge of our lifetime. So we have to be willing to be open-minded and do everything that we can. But I do support the Green New Deal. And I think that that could be a great job creator, especially for West Virginia. The New Deal actually helped West Virginia tremendously during the Depression, where we built a ton of trails and bridges here, and we could do that again with clean energy. We could be manufacturing wind turbines. We could be installing wind turbines on our mountain ridges and actually be producing that wind energy. Another thing that I think would be great for West Virginia is if nationally we could legalize both hemp and cannabis, but the potential for industrial hemp here in West Virginia is really amazing just because of our climate, our soil type. Those plants grow really well here. So that's a great economic opportunity for our state. And a lot of people have talked about growing hemp on abandoned coal mining sites where they've done strip mining to remediate the soil. And then I think we could take that hemp and then process it into, biofuel or bioplastics or even hardwood floor, hempcrete, all kinds of building materials, paper, clothing. It's a food source. So, I mean, really that I think we should really lean into that plant as a substitute for so many of the toxic things that we produce. And also hemp just absorbs CO2 a lot faster and it grows really fast. So that's just kind of like an on the ground way here in West Virginia that I think we could really help address climate change and some of our environmental problems.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I'd love to just dig a little bit deeper because you had mentioned the Green New Deal as a basis. I love the idea of adding biofuel through hemp as a method of, addressing this. But, I think the baseline goal that I think a lot of people are trying to figure out is, what is that transition plan? Because I think a lot of the people who work in West Virginia currently are classically some of these coal miners and were
Mhm.
working in some of these fossil fuel jobs. What
Mhm.
would your approach be to try and either replace their labor or support them in that period of time when they are not able to find work as easily? What's your approach to help those people that, say, I all am for, addressing climate change, but don't kill my job. I really need this to be able to put food on the table. How
Yeah,
do you
that's a
try and
great
talk to those people?
question. That's a great question. We really need in West Virginia, we really need a just transition. So we have our coal jobs in West Virginia have been in major decline
Mhm.
for decades. And even in the past 4 years, with a very pro coal president who came here and promised to bring back the coal industry, we've seen a continuation of that decline in jobs. We've lost thousands of coal jobs over the past 4 years. So that is kind of a reality of where the market is going for energy nationwide. So what we have to do is be prepared for that and offer our people other options for jobs by diversifying our economy and bringing other industries here and providing the training and then also providing the opportunity at the same time. And I do think that there is a role for the federal government to come in and say, people who are losing their jobs in these fossil fuel industries because of this transition, we should give them extra support. and financial support for their families during that time, like if they've lost their job, until we can get them trained in another well-paying, sustainable job, that we should support them during that time. And that's a just transition. And some people might say, well, that's not fair. But when you think about it, the labor and natural resources of West Virginia really have made America rich. And a lot of that money has been concentrated in coastal places, coastal cities like New York and Silicon Valley in California. And so much of our wealth in West Virginia has just been exported out of the state. So several of us who are running for federal office right now are saying we need a just transition for West Virginia. We need a Green New Deal for Appalachia.
The last question I want to ask you on this climate change plan before we go to the poverty and basic services is I'd love to just ask you, in that transition plan, we have roughly 80% of our energy sources today come from some form of fossil fuels. I wanted to ask you, in that, first two, 1 to 2 terms, do you think we should be removing, natural gas in that process, as well as these petroleum and coal jobs? Do you support keeping fracking as a transitionary fuel, or do you think we should be trying to get rid of fracking at the same time?
I think when we look at fracking, there have been a lot of people who have had major issues with fracking close to their house, and polluting their water sources. So we need to look at how to do that, make sure that we're doing it carefully. And if we can't do it carefully, then we need to move out away from doing it. I think if there's ways to minimize the most destructive types of fracking, we should do that first, and then I think as quickly as possible we should move into a cleaner source. I also forgot to mention geothermal for West Virginia. We have huge geothermal potential here. So I think that it's definitely within our reach to be 100% renewable. I don't think we should just, kick everybody off their jobs and say, oh, we don't have energy. Obviously, you have to build the replacement before making that transition. So, we have to focus on investing in whatever it is that we're going to replace these things with. But the idea is that will create a lot of jobs and be sustainable.
Yeah, I like that approach, because I think there's an appropriate nuance there, in that you got to build first before you try and replace it. You don't want to make people struggle to get the energy they need to have a productive economy, or just keep the lights on in the home. And furthermore, it doesn't have to be an outright, let's abolish all forms of fracking immediately. Let's focus on these key areas where they're not maintaining safety standards or are polluting our environment. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I think this is the perfect place for us to take a break. As we'll come back, we'll talk about some of those policies that are going to help us address poverty in the area and provide these basic services, as well as talk about some of the strategy that's going to be required from a leadership perspective to accomplish these goals. So stay tuned. We'll be back in part 2 of our conversation with Hillary Turner.
Thanks, John.
Thank you so much for watching today's episode of The Hill of Roses. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you did, please let us know by subscribing to our channel, liking today's video, and sharing the video with your friends. Also, if you want to be notified, please make sure you hit the bell when you subscribe. Finally, if you want to find more of our network's content, please go to thehillofroses.com. With that being said, we love y'all for helping the movement grow, and we hope you're staying rosy out there.